The wind howled across Coyote Pass, biting and relentless, as it rushed through leafless trees. Janelle stood alone, the cold biting at her coat, and felt a strange sense of alignment with the barren landscape. Once a place envisioned with hope and unity, the land now mirrored her own emotional state, silent, stark, and empty. She stepped from her car and walked to the edge of the bluff, overlooking the snow-covered valley below. The wind tugged at her clothing, but she no longer flinched from it. In the stillness, she found a kind of clarity that had been long buried under years of emotional exhaustion. "This was supposed to be ours," she whispered, her breath misting in the air. But it never really was. Not after Robyn. She remembered the exact moment she noticed the shift. It was during a family gathering, casual chatter, laughter, the smell of shared food. Then Robyn arrived, fashionably late, and everything subtly changed. Kody, previously immersed in conversation, turned with a posture that was unfamiliar. His attention had shifted. Janelle had seen Christine clock it too, the way Robyn spoke in delicate tones, the tension she referenced without cause, and how Kody immediately responded as if it had always been there. From that point forward, a pattern emerged. Discord followed. Robyn often seemed overwhelmed, Kody would be agitated. And the rest of them, Mary, Christine, and Janelle, were left reconciling the emotional aftermath. Now, sitting in her small rental, Janelle flipped through old journals and budget sheets, relics from when they planned their lives at Coyote Pass. Her handwriting was organized and purposeful, a painful reminder of the life she once believed in. A text from her son Gabriel broke her reverie. "Mom, stop worrying about him. He's made his choice. Maybe it's time you made yours too." That message reached a part of her she had long silenced. The truth was, the public had witnessed more than enough arguments, distant exchanges, cold silences. But the gradual shift, the unseen pull, was never captured. Robyn didn't just arrive, she slowly influenced. Not overtly, but subtly, shaping narratives and loyalties. Over time, Kody became more guarded, more rigid. He enforced rules no one could live by: no travel, no gatherings, no exceptions, not even for adult children. When Janelle questioned these expectations, he confronted her at her doorstep. "I'm not asking," he said. "If you don't follow these rules, you're choosing them over me." She was stunned. "There are children," she replied. He defended Robyn's choices. "She hasn't left the house in weeks. She's committed to keeping this family safe." But what Janelle saw was something else: distance, isolation, and the erosion of shared decision-making. She had tried to reason with Kody, had tried to help their children make sense of the strain. Garrison withdrew. Gabriel called her in tears. Kody's response was to retreat further, reframing every concern as disloyalty. Eventually, Janelle stopped pretending. She pressed record on her phone, not to post, but to speak her truth out loud, even if only to herself. "His reactions aren't random. They're not about the land or the pandemic," she said aloud. "They're about control. They're about influence. About Robyn creating a reality where she is the only voice he hears." She paused, the lump in her throat rising. "And I stayed, because I hoped the man I loved was still in there. But he's gone." The most pivotal moment came in silence, in a kitchen no longer filled with shared laughter, but just Janelle and Robyn. Janelle leaned against the counter and said calmly, "I know what's happening. And it's time to stop." Robyn blinked, feigning confusion. "I don't understand." "You do," Janelle replied. "You've isolated him. You've reframed everything. You've changed the story, made us out to be problems rather than partners. That's not peace. That's control." Robyn's eyes welled with tears. "All I've done is love him. And in doing so," Janelle said, her voice stronger, "you've left the rest of us gasping for air." That confrontation was never broadcast. No lights. No producers. Just two women, standing in the wreckage of what was once a shared life. Later, Janelle sat with her children, Gabriel, Garrison, Madison, Hunter, in a quiet, unscripted moment. They shared memories and heartbreak. Madison recalled, the rules changed after Robyn. They stopped being about family and started being about control. Gabriel, normally quiet, looked straight at her. He said I disrespected him because I asked why he didn't call on my birthday. Tears filled Janelle's eyes. You deserved better. All of you did. There was no dramatic music. Just truth. And with it, the beginning of healing. That spring, Janelle returned to Coyote Pass for the last time. The wind was still sharp, but the land had begun to bloom again. Wildflowers peeked out between the rocks. She stood barefoot in the soil, arms open, and whispered, I gave you everything. But now, I take myself back. And she turned, not with regret, but with resolve, no longer silent, no longer lost in someone else's story. She wasn't a sister wife anymore. She was Janelle. Complete. Free. And finally, after her final visit to the pass, Janelle didn't look back, not because she wasn't tempted, but because she no longer needed to. She had spent so many years looking backward, trying to trace the steps that led to loss, that now, the only direction left was forward. The silence that once unsettled her now felt like space. Room to breathe. To exist without expectation. She started volunteering part-time at a community co-op in Flagstaff. No cameras. No commentary. Just conversations with strangers who didn't see her as a wife, or an ex-wife, or a character. Just a woman rebuilding something sacred, her life. One day, she got a card in the mail. A simple white envelope, no return address. Inside, it said, Thank you for saying what we couldn't. You helped me believe we weren't wrong to leave. See. She smiled. It could have been Christine. Or Mary. Or even someone else watching from the sidelines, someone who saw a reflection of their own silence in hers. Meanwhile, Kody stayed on the land he had once called their future. He wandered the property, shuffling through patches of dirt, inspecting markers he had once driven into the ground with pride. Blueprints that were now yellowed. Rules scrawled on papers that flapped uselessly in the wind. The dream he once sold had no buyers left. The children no longer called. Some out of self-preservation, others because they were tired of speaking into silence. The cameras came around less frequently, too. Not because the show was ending, but because the story had moved on without him. He sat on the porch one afternoon, looking out across the barren field, and muttered aloud. They were supposed to follow me. But no one followed anymore. Robyn stayed close, but something in her posture had changed too. It was subtle, a tension in her jaw, a longer pause before responding. Perhaps she had begun to realize what she had gained was not a family, but a kingdom of one, and even that was shrinking. One night, as Kody sat beside the fireplace, he opened an old photo album. Smiles stared back at him. Smiles he hadn't earned in years. He flipped to a page, a photo of Janelle in the early days, laughing with the kids around a campfire, hair pulled up in a messy bun, face lit not by candles or camera lights, but by joy. A memory surfaced. A night when the power went out, and she had lit candles and read books aloud to the kids, turning a frustrating moment into a storybook one. He had admired her then, for her calm, her strength, her endless capacity to make things work. He realized now. He hadn't lost her because she changed. He lost her because he did. Final scene, a new morning. In a quiet downtown cafe, Janelle sipped coffee beside Gabriel, who had driven in for the weekend. They didn't talk about Kody. They didn't need to. Instead, they talked about books, recipes, and Gabriel's plans to travel. They laughed. Not the nervous laughter of people trying to fill silence, but the full-hearted kind, built from peace. You seem different, he said. I am different, she replied. Or maybe just more me. He nodded. I'm proud of you, Mom. She placed her hand over his. I'm proud of us. Outside, the wind picked up. It still carried a bite, but no longer felt like it could tear her apart. She had stood in the storm, and it hadn't broken her. When Garrison visited Janelle's new house, a modest rental with uneven steps, a lopsided porch swing, and garden beds she'd started planting herself. She was learning how to live without instruction. You could have afforded something bigger, he commented, lifting a crate of gardening soil from her trunk. She shrugged. Maybe. But I didn't need bigger. I needed mine. They worked in silence for a bit, hands in the soil. The sun was soft that day, filtered through drifting clouds. Garrison finally asked what he hadn't dared to before. Do you ever wish you stayed? Janelle paused. Not out of doubt, but because it deserved an honest answer. I wish it didn't fall apart, she said. But I don't wish I stayed in something that already had. He nodded. That was enough. They planted wildflower seeds in one of the beds. Janelle pressed each one into the soil gently, like a promise. Something that would bloom not because it had to, but because it could. Chapter: Robyn's Window. Back at the larger home, Robyn watched from her kitchen window as Kody stood motionless in the backyard, looking out at the land. He didn't ask about the children anymore. He no longer read texts aloud. His fury had given way to something worse: silence. She brewed tea like she always did, but he didn't drink it. She repeated the same assurances: you did everything you could, they misunderstood you, but he no longer argued. He barely replied. It scared her more than the yelling. At night, she lay beside him, but he didn't reach for her. He stared at the ceiling, murmuring names under his breath. Christine. Janelle. Madison. Garrison. Gabriel. Names of people who had stopped orbiting him. And then, one morning, he was gone. Not far, just outside, standing barefoot at the edge of the property in the pre-dawn chill. Robyn wrapped herself in a blanket and joined him. The wind was sharp. The same wind that once ripped through Janelle's coat now pushed through them. You okay? She asked. I don't know who I am without them, he said softly. She didn't answer. For once, there was no script to follow. No version of events to defend. No enemy to blame. Just the sound of someone realizing they were alone in the kingdom they built. Chapter: Letters from a Life Before. Back in her new home, Janelle received another envelope. This one was from Christine, unmistakable from the handwriting that danced across the page like laughter. I'm proud of you. For saying it. For walking away. For surviving it all with your spirit intact. You gave us permission to stop performing strength and start living it. Love always, C. Janelle tucked it between the pages of an old journal, right next to the blueprint she once drew of the dream house that was never built. And for the first time, she smiled without bitterness. Chapter: Redefinition. Later that summer, all the kids, even Hunter, even Aurora, even Dayton, met for a weekend in Sedona. No cameras. No drama. Just a rented cabin, a barbecue, and quiet reconciliation. They didn't try to pretend things hadn't changed. They had. But they also didn't let the old fractures stop them from building something new. Madison gave a toast that night, glass of soda in hand. To the moms. All of them. But especially the ones who stayed for too long, and left just in time. They laughed. They cried a little. And then Gabriel said what none of them had expected. I think Dad was trying. He just chose the wrong way to lead. And the wrong person to listen to. No one disagreed. No one defended. There was peace in that. Final chapter, just Janelle. Months later, back at Coyote Pass, the wind still blew. The land was still empty. But if you looked close, near the edge of the bluff, you'd see something small, a patch of wildflowers growing, defiantly, where snow once covered everything. Janelle didn't return to reclaim it. She had no need to. But she did walk the path once more, barefoot in the dirt. This time, not to let go, but to acknowledge that she had. The sky above her stretched wide and open. No walls. No rules. No rules. Just the sound of the earth breathing beneath her feet. She stood for a while, quiet but not silenced. And when she turned to leave, it wasn't an escape. It was a homecoming. To herself.